Hello and welcome back to the Buy Round interview show. How good was part one with Tim SHeens? Geez, that man does love rugby league. Here's part two for you. The joint venture. It's been an issue at one of my old teams, the Dragons. It gets spoken about with the Tigers. Is there a way to set you guys up to be more successful? Whether it be home grounds, whether it be finding a home, finding an identity. Do you have any ideas? You can help make it help you set make it better for the West Tigers of now and for the future. How can you make that a more positive experience, more increase the opportunity and the likelihood of success through what you've got there?
Well, I'm only in a position to do certain things, you know. I mean, I don't like to get involved in politics if I can help it, but it does happen. And as a senior coach, you're in there, you're with it. You know, you see both sides of it. The younger coaches don't see it to any great degree. What happens, of course, is you had two clubs. Balmain, West basically own the large amount of the club, right? West Ashfield in particular. So that's different to where it was when I was here in 05 to 12. Balmain's League Cup's gone under, although they're going to rebuild it, I believe. And that'll be West going to rebuild it, but it'll be Balmain League Cup, as I understand, revisited. Next year, we should have been doing it this year. We're going to have more games at Leichhardt and Campbelltown, but Women's World Cup has stopped that. But next year I'm told anyway, I'm told correctly, hopefully, we don't need the money from playing at some of the bigger grounds like we used to. Like I can remember West Tigers going to down to New Zealand and playing the Warriors at Christchurch, right? It was our home game. We made more money in that one game than we had in probably 6 games at Leichhardt. Because if you have a wet season at Leichhardt, you're done, you know, like people, they're not coming. Leichhardt, you envisage Leichhardt as a sunny day on the hill, you know. When it's pouring rain, it ain't the place to be. And the grandstand is the original grandstand from the 70s. So early 70s they built it. So, you know, it's she's an old lady, that one. But we will be able to play more games there and Campbelltown next year. And that's already committed. So that will help, particularly down there at Campbelltown, because Leichhardt seems to draw well because the other teams Sydney teams anyway. Yeah. But when we play down there, we're playing Melbourne. Not many Melbourne fans will be there. And the fans down there are a mixture of people who I saw it in the old days when I worked in real estate at Penrith, and people would come and buy at Penrith because they couldn't afford Sydney where their parents lived. They'd come and buy, young couples. They're doing it down there now. And they have other clubs is there, but they'll eventually, them and their kids buy into your club. So,
is that you think that's the?
Well, I think the strategy is we're spending more time down at Campbelltown for sure. The team and the club, but our main base is here. Yeah. But we are looking to put up, and we're working on funding to get an academy for West at Campbelltown's ground there, or at least in the Campbelltown area, whereby the kids and we have a base to go down there and spend more time there, because you need the facility for a professional footy team. Yeah,
and if you've got a footprint in the community there, then that helps your identity. It helps the community, like that community feel that they belong to a club. I know what it's like when the Bulldogs fans are behind you versus when they're not. It's all the difference. Like it can make a huge
winning.
It
helps,
can have of course it does, but still that can impact your likelihood of winning.
Yeah. Well, years ago, Tommy Radonicus, when he was coaching West, not West Tigers, would go up and down the town with a megaphone on the back of the truck on a Saturday morning to tell people, we're playing tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. I haven't gone that level as yet. But anyway, I know what you're saying. It is an isolated area, but it's a brilliant area for us. Yeah. And we need to really bring it. And, even the stadia, we're liking, we want more, it is, again, a lot of hill stuff and seats around the fence. not ideal on wet days or cold nights, you know. So or corporates, there's very little corporate in both clubs in both things.
But I guess for to that move to set up the permanent base in Campbelltown, that area is only expanding as well.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's expanding.
Draws really well.
Young families.
Yeah.
Kids to get into the system. They'd be, if they're a Tigers member from age 5, they're more likely to be engaged with the club, and then if they're, I've supported Tigers all my life.
Yeah, exactly right.
So you're developing Benji and Robbie as coaches now.
Right.
But let's have a look at some of the coaches that you've already come from your tree.
Mm-hmm.
Laurie Daly, Craig Bellamy, Mal Meninga, Ricky Stewart, Kevin Walters, Todd Payton, Michael Maguire, Paul Green, Royce Simmons.
Yeah.
In a way, is that a greater indication of your success rather than the trophies and the amount of games and the time that you've been involved?
I'll tell you what it is. It's at least my identification of what I think could make a coach. But I remember saying to Ricky back into his career, what do you want to do? You're going to coach? He said, no. I said, why not? He said, I don't know what I'm going to do before I get the ball, So that was his honest answer. But generally, I didn't. I made a few of them coaches. I gave them a coaching start, like Craig and so on. But not Laurie or Mal. They all developed into coaches. They went into coaching, but they had other coaches involved with them. But I was probably their longest coach. Canberra for Laurie, for instance, Ricky, Mal to a degree. Craig was older, but I did give him the job of the 23s. And Dean Lance was another one I gave the state cup to, second grade. Ricky fell into it himself. After I'd left the club, he went to Canterbury, and then they gave him the President's Cup, I think, and then he moved, or the lower grades. And then he sort of moved from there. Gus gave him an opportunity there too at Canterbury. At Roosters. He then got a shot at Roosters. So, but Royce. Well, Royce was the one who recommended me to coach Penrith. In that 74 days, he said to the club, give Tim the coaching role. They did. And then later on in life, I recommended him to Roger Cowan when Royce was finishing. He said, and I think Gus was leaving the club, and that he asked about coaching, and I said, give it to Royce, who I knew would do the job as well. I don't lay claim to any of them. I think they're all stupid for going into coaching, to be quite honest.
Was it
laughingly?
Did you say that Craig Bellamy would never make it as a coach? He'd be more of a better strength and conditioning.
Strength and conditioning. Craig was always super fit, as was Dean Lance. And I thought Craig would, and that's where he started. He didn't start as a coach at when he went up. He started coaching with me, right? But I gave him the kids, right? And the famous story I tell about him is he said to me, what do you want from me, coach? And I said, with the kids, discipline and fit, 2 things. Easy peasy for Craig, because that was his game. He was super disciplined about himself and always fit. So we're running interval training 400s. I think we're doing 8 or 10 of them. First grade had finished. It was a grass pitch around. I thought, I'll wait to see how Craig goes with them, So they're running. They're into about their 6th one. And a kid, they're at the line, and because he was putting his whistle in his mouth to blow it to start, right? Because we used to run them ourselves. We were doing strength and conditioning. We were doing it with a stopwatch. And Craig went like that, and a kid sort of fell forward, and then pulled back.
Yeah.
Start again. Not start the 1, start 6 again. He made them run another 6 plus the remainder of what they were. Anyway, I said to him, I told this story to Johnsy when he did an interview with me. I said, over in the office, I said, Craig, I thought you might have been a bit hard. You said, give me the old finger, discipline and fit. I had to back away, right? So anyway, he did well with the kids. Always had them out there till all hours of the night because they were the 3rd team training after 1st grade, 2nd grade, and then so they were often out there at 7 or 8 o'clock, freezing to death, with everyone gone home except him and the boys and a couple of staff. So Wayne rang me about him, and I said, I think he'd do a good job. It was more conditioning. There was no assistant coaches in those days. It was your second grade coach and your third grade coach.
It's crazy to think.
He didn't need a coach. He wanted a conditioner. And I said, Craig would do it easy, Wayne, but in saying that, he's not qualified. And he said, that doesn't matter. I've got a program I'll have written for him by a qualified person, and Craig will run it. So Craig went up and started doing that. And then occasionally he would do, because I used to do a lot of analysis of games and things, and Wayne wasn't big in that, but Craig started to give him a few tips. And as I understand, Wayne wasn't overly fussed, but and gradually I think Craig broke him down. Anyway, he started to do a lot more, and then Wayne had some. I think he was State of Origin coach, and Craig ended up with the baby Broncos, as they called them, and they actually beat West, I think, at Campbelltown in a game, one of his first games as coaching the side, and then he sort of took him on more and more into the coaching system rather than the strength and conditioning system, and then Craig applied for West Tigers when they were looking for the coach that eventually I got. They went to Craig, and Craig knocked them back because Melbourne were coming in, and Melbourne wanted him, so he decided he'd go there. Craig had an association with John Rebo, and Rebo was involved with the formation of Super League / they wanted to keep Melbourne in the system. So after Chrissy Anderson, they offered it to Craig, and Craig took that. So I'm thankful because then they gave me the West Tigers job, and he's quite thankful that he didn't take it because he got the Melbourne gig. And, of course, they looked after him because that first grand final Melbourne played after Super League, Melbourne played St George in that famous grand final. St George Illawarra, they're on probably a $9-10 million salary cap when the cap was posted. And the Melbourne one was exactly the same. Both clubs, we were all given 3 years to get the cap down, but those two were playing on salary caps of today, 10 million.
Yeah, wow.
Some of the players playing in the St George side, let alone the Melbourne side. So they stripped for Melbourne. They stripped all the clubs. Brett Camorley ended up there. He was probably the player of the time. He actually played at halfback when Johnsy played hooker at one stage in the State of Origin. I had him signed at Cowboys, and we had a contract signed and everything, and he works for me now, and I still remind him of it, but it wasn't him. The Super League said no. Melbourne, they wanted Melbourne strong, so he and Hill and a whole heap of guys, Geyer and so on, Carney, all the boys went to Melbourne, so they strengthened Melbourne, and Adelaide went under, and second Newcastle side went under, Perth went under, and so on. So, and then you had the joint ventures, and that's 22 teams down to something like 12, I think it was at the time. So they had to go through all of that sort of stuff. So Craig's obviously been there since. Yeah.
Hey, you just talking about the difference, like no assistants, just doing it all yourself.
Yeah.
Do you ever sometimes look around at modern day training where I imagine you've got drones filming every session and just think, what's going on here?
True. When you look at but that's the game progressing. And if you don't progress yourself, if you're going to say, in my day we did this, and like so many old players talk about, bring back the scrum, blah, blah, blah. I said, you guys have got to be kidding me. I mean, but rugby, okay. Tell me when you see a rugby scrum against the feet. They pack so low, the hooker can't get his feet off the ground. As you pack, the hooker puts his leg out, and then it's a push over the ball. And a little bit of second row feed by the halfback. Very rarely, in all the crap that goes on, excuse the expression, about their scrums and ours, because we've got a non-contested scrum, and they do that if they lose a prop or something, they have non-contested scrums.
We can contest the scrum.
Yeah.
Teams just don't.
You just can't. No, because you put the hooker at the back of the scrum, it's a dummy half pass.
You're allowed to push.
I know.
It amazes me why more teams don't.
Well, you can't strike for the ball as a prop because in England they stop prop striking, which is just incomprehensible sorry, for me. I can't understand that as a prop, used to strike for the ball and help the hooker. particularly if the hooker didn't have the loose and he was further across the scrum than their hooker. The prop used to have to work hard to.
But even though
help him.
the ball can go in through the tunnel, you can still push, but teams don't.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling that more teams don't.
The
push
reason
at the
being
scrum.
because if it goes straight out and you're still pushing, they run straight past you. We did that to Newcastle once. Robbie Louis fed the ball. They tried to push us off. We managed to get it out. Rob ran straight past the whole scrum, still pushing us, and had no one in front of him.
Yeah.
Fullback came past the Benji, scored under the post.
There's a
real risk.
There is a real risk.
Keeping your head in the scrum these days. And there's no reason to. It's like striking the ball. You're not allowed to. You've got to play the ball backwards. You used to be able to play the ball forwards or sideways. You used to be able to kick the ball sideways, pick it up, even if there was a marker.
Play the ball to yourself.
Yeah.
You could.
And you still can today. If there was no dummy half and I played the ball, I can turn around and pick it up.
Can you?
Hell yeah. It's played. It's cleared the ruck, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So that allows me.
So when sometimes, because sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
The player playing
That's
the
right.
ball,
and then he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
If it's cleared the ruck, which has cleared the plant foot, right, the heel of the plant foot, once it's cleared, it's out. So technically he could turn around and dive on it, if there was no dummy half. Start a trend, play the ball to yourself, pick it up and not have a dummy half. No, they're on it straight away. If you played it to no one, I mean, they come around and dive on it. But technically, you can. And
could you set up a new move where you bang one in, right?
Yeah.
And then get the front rower to play the ball to himself, and then you create the extra man.
I wouldn't be game to have a front rower play to himself and actually pick the thing up and pass. But no, I think the days of one marker and that outside of one goal line and that are gone. Brian Smith, a good mate of mine, went to Roosters years ago and tried to get back to the one marker system.
I remember hearing
and got criticised to buggery for it. The second man was always going out. They kept attacking him and all that sort of thing. But Brian was a great thinker of the game as well. Intense, very intense, and but always thinking about improving the game. He had a lot of games in because coaches don't get rewarded for all the games. Like the players get on 300 games. I think Craig Bellamy got a football in a plastic box for 500 games. But anyway, that's my little whinge.
I actually had a bit of time with Brian Smith. I really enjoyed it. He was a quality human being and very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Talking about improving the game, you spent some time over there in England.
Yeah.
What do you think they need to do to potentially rival the NRL? Is that just an impossible dream?
It's lack of numbers and finance at the moment. It's an old game over there at the moment. You look at how many, say, some of the guys, Hall and that, still playing, at well into his 30s, mid-30s and more. A couple of the guys playing down there at Salford are the same, outside backs, and the game's slow. All the fast guys, most backs haven't made it in Australia. And this is Royce's comment. It's because they're too slow to play the game over here because the fast guys play football in England. If you're in a classroom of kids, football's you got to be fast to play football, don't you? And so a lot of that, but over here we get a lot of Tongan Samoan guys playing, Islander boys playing, and that sort of thing too. They're not interested in soccer. They're interested in rugby, as in league or union. Over there, you've got rugby in the south, and obviously in the north we've got. And although Union are struggling, they've lost 2 or 3 clubs recently as well.
Yeah.
So it's a real issue for them. But they've still got their Six Nations, which is our state of origin, which is where they
really strong,
really make their money from that, which keeps them afloat. But the clubs themselves are struggling. And up north, of course, they're struggling in our rugby league. Well, but our Champ and Champ 1 and Super League is a system that allows no development to any great degree. The academies are strong in a certain number of clubs, but not every club has. And COVID really upset it. I mean, COVID shut down reserve grade. They got reserve grade started again, and it went under. The Champ clubs won't amalgamate with the Super League club and be a sort of a sister club, which because they got their own pride. Because in the 50s they were champions at one stage. You just can't get that out of the system over there.
Like a Featherstone, for example.
Yeah, exactly. They were great.
We won the Challenge Cup in 1960.
There you go. That's right. So, but if they join forces with, say, Wakefield, you're in the same area, or Cass, which is in the same area, you get maybe they could be the feeder club. But, of course, the fans won't aware that. There's the old-fashioned fans, a bit like Balmain West fans and St George Illawarra fans. You've got the fans that follow that one franchise. They're not interested. The kids will be the one, and the kids.
Even the 10 franchise, over there. Well, it's you'd never refer to them as a like they get genuinely offended. Like, well, no, we're not. We're not a we're a club. Do you think scrapping promotion relegation would be beneficial?
I argued about it. When it was the what they call it, the middle eight or the middle eights. That's what they call it. When where the bottom, the top four.
The middle eights.
The middle eight system. We survived that at. I had initially I went over to Salford. I was only rugby director. I didn't coach at Salford. Then went to Hull KR as a coach,
you played in that £1 million game, didn't you?
Sorry,
no, you didn't play.
That's the year I took it. I didn't play it. That was the year I took it. I signed to coach them in Super League, and I remember I was in London coming back listening to Salford, where I was, play Hull KR in the £1 million game. Anyway, and then, of course, Salford, the reason I applied for the job there with Jamie Peacock, who was the rugby director there, he and I were working together to try and put the two clubs together. They were the two owners that had some discussions about Salford and Hull KR playing as one club, right?
Really?
Yeah. I think Marvin would have let Salford go under, I think. Anyway, and Marvin said, look, I'm leaving the club. You need to find yourself a club. So I said to Jamie, and it all broke down. Then Jamie Peacock said to me, mate, we need a coach. Would you be interested? And Webbo was assistant coach there. He was coaching first grade because they'd let the coach go. So I said, I'll be interested. I'll be out of work because Marvin's pulling the pin on Salford. So then Salford win it in the £1 million game, and so Marvin runs around with the cheque, in front of the crowd, and they stay in Super League, and so he reinvests again, and we went to champ. So I said to Neil Hudgell, the owner, look, mate, you've paid me to coach first grade at a Super League wage. I'll let you out of that if you want, because Marvin wanted me to go back and continue with Salford. And Neil said, no, we'll continue. So I was on a massive wage coaching champ. But we kept most of them, we worked straight back up. One of the only sides that have and stayed up. I mean, Lee go up and down, up and down, up and down. But
they're actually doing all right this year.
But they look like they'll stay up this time, yeah?
Yeah, they're actually playoff contenders.
Yeah, that's right. He puts a lot of money in there, Derek. But
Lee Leopards.
Yeah, Lee Leopards.
Not so sure about the rebranding.
It makes money, mate, doesn't it? Sells shirts.
Well, if anyone who buys that shirt, good luck to them.
Anyway, so I inherited a side in champ, right? But we played Sunday to Sunday. The people love that, the Super League playing on Thursdays and whatever's doesn't fuss them, but a Sunday afternoon on a bus over to rock up, and they loved us in the comp because we bought 3 buses of people from KR. Anyway, we went really well and we won, and we ended up beating Widnes, I think, in the last game, did not even go into the 8. We survived, right? So that was elevation again. So everyone was happy about that. But the game over there, then COVID hit in and around the next year or two on that, and things went backwards in the game. Money, people going to games couldn't go. You had masks on all the time. Kids were sick, and players were sick, and it was so reserve grade, who they just got started again, went under. Reserves, as I say, not reserves, and then you had academy, and this was in Super League clubs, right? And so that was the system they should have tried to keep, but haven't been able to do.
Well, I think they do have. I think they've sold some of the rights to the Super League to an investment company.
Yeah.
What would your advice to them be to to grow the game? Because for me, I am genuinely concerned about the future of British Rugby League.
Well, they've got a couple of problems, always have had, and that is bringing in overseas players. But without the overseas players, it's a two-edged sword. Without overseas players, the standard wouldn't be great. But with them, they don't develop enough, right? So the kid doesn't always get a chance. But with an element, so they have a limited number of overseas players, obviously, and they've introduced things like marquee players, which means you can have them at 500 grand, but only in salary cap at 120 or whatever if they're a local. I can't remember the exact figures, but that's a sort of advantage to having a great kid come through. You can give him a marquee payment and not ruin your salary cap. So, but development, we'd have more kids playing in our area than I reckon in the whole of England.
In Hull?
No, here.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Our kids.
You're saying...
Well, the Penrith Junior League.
No,
Penrith Junior League,
right.
our Junior League, Parramatta's Junior League.
You're correct.
There's 7,000 to 10,000 kids in each area playing football. Now, I reckon the whole Super League system wouldn't have that many kids playing for instance, at the academy levels that they play. So it is, and the Junior League clubs aren't great for numbers either. So it is, as James Webster said to me the other day, who was over here, and he said the game is an old game, and the kids have lost that couple of years with COVID, 2 or 3 years almost over there, and so the game is not developing to the degree that they all hoped. So therefore, more and more from Australia are being brought into the country, and of course, bringing them in is a funny system too. The government have certain criteria, and the game has certain criteria. But if you pay them enough money, as in a 6-figure amount, you can get them in, even if they don't play a certain number of first-grade games and so on. So the stronger clubs, again, are better off than the weaker clubs who can't afford their 7 imports or whatever it is now. I think it's still 7 thereabouts.
Yeah, I think so,
Yeah. So, and 7 is probably the right number, but to my way of thinking, they'd be better off bringing some of the younger players from Australia. For instance, if you're a Tongan player and you've played 3 or 4 tests or something, you can get in. If you're an Aboriginal player, you can't, because the Aboriginal boys have got to play for Australia. So if you're a Aboriginal, you cannot get in on that basis.
Yeah.
And I believe that's just one example of it, but I believe some of the younger players here would do really well in England and grow in England rather than go over there at 30 plus and just take the money. And not everyone does that, but some do. They think it's going to be easy over there. It's not. If you really want to, it's not a bad standard.
It's a tough competition.
You bet it is.
Yeah.
It's like, again, because of the age and experience of a lot of the combatants that play for the clubs. But it's just getting the kids an opportunity over there. A good, strong reserve grade in your club would good, rather than be loaned back to champ or champ 1. People probably don't understand what we're talking about, but loaning or
like the borrowing of
players.
Harry Grant did
it here with us.
Yeah.
But it's endemic in the game over there. They sign all the kids, do the strong clubs, and then loan them out and get money for it. Right? It's a bit football do that a bit over there too. You know, develop players and loan them out to lower divisions and pick money up for it. And if the kid comes good, they bring him back. So, so the kid goes down and plays against men in champ that are well and truly past their best, but they're strong and they're they love to play that sort of level, and they're experienced, and they can really work you over as a kid. Break your spirit a bit. There's not that division where they can play against their own age.
I know what you mean.
Into the 21. They used to have 23s. They used to have first grade and 23s way back in the 80s, like have a younger grade, but it was a limited age group. Which allowed the kids to play past the academy age into that sort of division, and they weren't playing men. They played their own age groups, which helped them develop, and then they stepped up to play against men because. There's a big difference for the kids over there to come from that level to first division over there as in Super League. I've seen kids just drop out of the game, and it can push them out of the game, which is the worst thing you can have. Yeah, they get bashed around a bit, and all of a sudden,
give up.
Yeah, give up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's IAG, the company that have bought a stake in the Super League. They got some serious strategic planning.
Yeah.
They need to get the right people on board. Unfortunately.
Well, unless you get the numbers, the pyramid at the top is the base at the bottom, right? The bigger the pyramid, the bigger the base. And the base is poor over there. France isn't doing too bad, as in they're getting a little better because they're pushing their kids and a little bit more, and you see a lot more coming in. But they've only got the 2 franchises to feature in the Super League. I'm pleased they got away from America and Canada. That's a waste of time. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't think
I didn't agree with it.
Toronto.
No, we played at Toronto. Like it's a millionaire with money, and when he wasn't there, the team wasn't there. You know, it's not a sport that's played strongly enough. I think you've got about 6 teams at amateur level. It's not very strong. The travel was and the effort to get in through with your you had some sort of driving offence or something. You know, Americans wouldn't let you into the country at times. You know, Canadians as well. Yeah, on your visa. There were visa issues. Guys part time trying to I had K at the time. And we're still in that champ year. In that champ year, and we played them over there, and 3 or 4 hour guys couldn't get in because of some sort of a record of driving or offense. Whatever. Yeah, mainly. Yeah.
Jeez.
So there were issues there, plus the travel and the expense and so on and so on. Like in real terms, not a bad idea. Get America or Canada involved, but too expensive, and they need to get their own act together.
Yeah,
in England. Yeah. They need to beat Australia. That's what they need to do.
Well, that'd be.
They need, in my opinion, they need a version, and I think it's been talked about, of the Ashes to come back, and the Australian side to play a few clubs. Not the massive one of years gone by. It
was going to happen.
It was going to happen before COVID.
Yeah.
That's right. I thought it was a great idea because the Ashes still sits in league headquarters, and all the old it's an old game by way of fans too in England. Yeah, they love they're devoted to their clubs and their game and their code over there. They're rugby leaguers, for sure. And the Ashes, if Australia played against, a combined Hull side or something, or against Wigan or St Helens, and you had 4 or 5 games and 3 tests, because you can't send them over for what they used to do anymore, because they both play in the same time zones anyway now, don't they, over there and here. There's no off-season where... So that would help, I think, because it promotes the game.
Yeah, it would.
You need to promote. Australia is the promotion. Whenever there'll be a test match there this year, I think Tongans are going.
Tongans are going for 3
They
games,
love their rep footy.
Yeah.
Right? And England need to beat some of those sides.
Yeah.
Right? To
generate buzz, generate hype.
Yeah. Well, when I left there,
I
had the All Stars had been reinvented. So we beat England. Yeah. We had a week to put it together. And I couldn't pick a side until England had picked their side because of the criteria. It's a long story, I won't go into it. But we had a week to prepare and beat them, And most of them weren't superstar ex-Australians or New Zealanders, but they bonded together really well because they did the thing for Mossy Masoi. It was raising funds, and they all knew Mossy, and because I brought Mossy into the camp. But then they've won the last one. So, they need to win some international. They need a trophy badly.
Yeah. Don't I know it? We came so close in 17 with that World Cup final. Right. It would have been amazing for the international game.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break from the podcast to tell you about AG1, the daily foundational nutritional drink with all your needs in the one place. I like to look after my health, and AG1 takes care of that for me. No more tablets, vitamin pills, all the health, nutrition I need, all in the one place. Every single morning, it's as easy. Open up the fridge, scoop of AG1 in a glass, cold water, stir it with a fork, drink it. It tastes great, and it helps me know. It gives me the peace of mind that all my nutritional needs are taken care of, all in the one drink. It really is as simple as that. And also, anybody that knows anything about health benefits knows that it comes with adding simple routines to your day. It's not about magic pills. They're not going to work. AG1 helps me be the best version of myself by having this new habit of every single morning having that drink, I know my nutritional bases are covered thanks to AG1. A lot of athletes are now taking AG1, and with 75 high-quality ingredients, it's no wonder why. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/buyround. That's drinkag1.com/buyround. Check it out. We've gone through a lot. There'd be plenty more we could get through. We have not even touched on your playing career, your time at Canberra. But couple of sections of the show. This is for Tooheys, the Dream Spine. Teamwork. Tooheys is all about teamwork. Yeah. So we want to know your all-time dream spine that you've coached.
Well, I can bring him from any club, can I?
Absolutely, mate. You're the first guest to do this that you've coached.
You would do that to me. When people ask me about my best player, I refuse to answer. There's been too many of those. On any given moment or any given year, someone's has a great year or a great series or a great whatever. And it's unfair for me to pick anyone else. But look, I'll just name, I'm not going to name, I can't name 14. But what I'll do, I'll name some of the best ones I've been involved with. From Greg Alexander as a youngster, his first year, to Ricky Stewart, who come back from rugby union. You talk about halfbacks. Then you take Scotty Prince, who out of Brisbane. I had him at Townsville, and he played second grade at Brisbane. And then you go to the rep footy, right? Thurston, Cronk, Lockyer, to start with, before I go. And that's a pretty fair group as well.
What about your ones and your nines?
The ones, Gary Belcher, Brett Mullins at Canberra, both great players. Brett Hodgson just killed it for us in 2005, had a great year. But then Billy Slater and company, and all those other ones, Darius, who played for me at times, Gio played for me at times in the test matches. Jared, I picked Jared mainly as a centre, but those sort of players, quality boys. If you're talking about a tough time, I had that 13 World Cup side that we had. I had all 24 of them played State of Origin that year, right? Not was on reserves or anything, they played. So I picked 13. This is New South Wales and Queensland trying to get it to happen. Picked 13. The 4 who were on the bench weren't happy. What do you reckon? The other 7, So keeping them happy and not showing favouritism to Queensland, who were the dominant dogs at the time, that was a case. But really, some great people in that regard.
That is a very difficult thing for you to do.
Simo, he is such competitive. He had a lot to do, not only give me my job, but he had a lot to do with Penrith's success. We brought Penrith out of the doldrums and made the first semi-final ever. I still think it's probably one of the best games I've been involved in, Penrith making the 5. Yeah, not the semi itself, just the game. We beat Manly, a really strong Manly side in the middle of the week before the first semi, because we finished equal with them, equal 5th. We had to beat Manly on the Tuesday night and then play Parramatta on the Saturday, right? So we beat Manly and made the 5. First time the club had ever been in the semis since 66 when it went into grade.
Isn't it funny how games like that stick out?
Oh, look, just because I'd played through the 70s, I had 13 years and had 8 first-grade coaches. 8 first-grade coaches in 13 seasons. So you don't talk about change of coaches, mate. And all of them, and so that was what Penrith was like in those days, from the mid-60s to into the 80s when I coached them. So that semi-final meant a lot to me too, personally. Plus, I was second-year coach, full-time coach, so I was pretty chuffed with it, to be quite honest. But we got smashed by Parramatta, and they went on to make the grand final against Canterbury. But the 9, Simo, for sure, he was in that game, played with him and coached him. Then Stevie Walters, a special player too, just quietly, boxhead. Walters, the tractor, as he called himself, and then Robbie, and then you go to Cameron Smith, and
mate, Jesus, you've
they're a pretty fair group to put them all together into one sort of spine. 5'8", kid at Penrith, Brad Izzard was a real good kid to help get us there too, to that group. Not well known by people these days, but in his day, centre and 5'8", but he did really well. He and Greg Alexander had a great combination. Laurie Daly and Ricky Stewart, a combination to kill for. All the skills in the world. Laurie never gets the credit that he should get, as far as, although people still rate Laurie, but Laurie's one of the all-time greats in my opinion. As was Ricky, and that combination, when you get two like that gel, and then Steve Walters, Mullins at the back, it was a pretty fair spine, or Gary Belcher at the back. But the kangaroo side of the 13, was a fabulous group of players. I don't think I've coached a better group as that group in club led and rep footy is too different. But that'd be, I reckon that Australian squad would give any Australian squad a run for its money, even today. Yeah, you go through it and find me a weak link. Yeah, there's none. And as I said, I had some great players who couldn't get a game other than the odd game, that you give them. But the main games and the test, and that was always in that World Cup.
Mate, some of those names that you've coached is actually insane.
Yeah, and I'm doing injustice to Mal and a whole Ruben Wickies and a whole heap of guys that played. Some have forgotten. Obviously in the early days, but even the Tigers. Some of that 05 group was a fabulous group of players. All could play football.
I'm very blessed to work with some of the games.
Well, one of the guys, if you're asking me who I admire, which I'll get in front of you, the guy I admired most as a young coach and even as a player was Jack Gibson, who was ahead of his time. Funny sort of bloke, but he helped me when I first went into coaching. He came up, spoke to the boys, always sort of had a chat to me, took time out for me. So I think he was the guy that really helped me in my career in respect to, he was coaching, at the time. He had 3 premierships, the 3-peat, which we missed out in Canberra just by a small amount. But anyway, he got it at Parramatta. He had back-to-back 74, 75 Rooster sides that, the Parramatta side had the Australian backline from Sterling to Growth, and Crodens and something, and that Kenny and the Zip man. And then he had a massive, great group there, Roosters as well. So he was ahead of his time, and I like to. I used to chat to him, and he often, popped up and said hello to the boys for me with Penrith. Which was big of him to do that. But so even some of the great coaches, Wayne and I did our level 2s together up at university up the coast. I'll think of it in a sec. We grew up. I had to get my level 2 to coach, so I went up to Armidale, and they used to do. Roy Masters was there. Roy coached me as a player as well. Had 2 years at Penrith, and they used to do a coaching certificate thing. So we went up there for a week, and Bennett was there as well. So we go back a long way together. I followed him. He was at Canberra in 87, and then he went to the Broncos in 88, and I went to Canberra in 88. So he set a task for me. He and Don Ferner coached together in 87 and got him to the grand final. No one expected it, but I'd signed with them halfway through the year because I played a trial against them with my Penrith side in 87, and they whacked us, and I said, who the hell is this Kevin Walters and Gary Belcher and all these sorts of guys who no one knew anything about. They'd come out of the Brisbane comp. Yeah. Anyway, so I knew it was a pretty good side. I already knew about Clyde and Daly and them as kids because I tried to grab Laurie. But Don Furter had done a great job keeping him at Canberra. So when they offered me the opportunity, because Bennett was leaving the club, I grabbed it and told Penrith I was leaving halfway through the year that I was going to go to Canberra. But then in '88 we ran third and I got chastised for not going further because when you go second, they expect you to go first the next year. Yeah. Nearly lost my job in '89.
Wow.
Yeah. The board met without the chairman, which was, God love him, bless rest his soul, Les McIntyre, about moving me because we lost a few of our first games because I had rep players injured and Mal had a broken arm and so on and so on and so on. So anyway, they met to about move me, right? And so anyway, it didn't happen. Les wasn't even at the meeting. And this is a story I haven't told too many people. Anyway, he came back and we won the next 6. Mal came back, Gary Belcher's side. We won 6 and all of a sudden we were running second, right? So I asked to meet the board and went in and said about being sacked, are you still happy to move me? And old Les said, what? And all the board members sort of slunk down in their chairs and God love him, Les said, while ever I'm here, you're here. So that shut that down. Then we end up going on winning.
I could say.
So how do you, in real terms, I might not have made the '89 grand final.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's things in the background that are the politics of the game.
Yeah. Well, mate, you've worked with some fantastic people along the way.
And the reason I brought Jack up, sorry, Jimmy, was Jack Gibson had a famous saying. He used to coach 3-year terms. Work it out. Find out the problems, sort them, get a result. That was the 3-year system. But his main thing, and I firmly believe in this, he said, well, it had to do with the players. Had to do something with about the players, being the players that you coached. And a good coach is a good recruiter. You've got to recruit, and you've got to put them in the right place, let alone get them to play. But recruitment is such a huge thing in the game. Not only your junior development coming through, but also identifying player identification. And Jack always credited, well, it had something to do with it. It was a nice, slow, drawly, it had something to do with the players, And he's right. It's got everything to do with the players. You can't win with average players. You won't win anything with respect. You can improve them to a degree, but the good players are the ones you identify, the champions, the guys that play for their country, and all that type of thing, and you need to have an element of that in your team or develop it into your team through your kids. And that's a longer version of it, isn't it? It's a 3-year, 4-year deal from 17 to 21, and even then from 21 to 25, they grow again. So that type of thing, I think, is, talking, and I didn't really answer your question, but with that top player, where do I start? There's no way I could run one over the other, mate. So
no, absolutely not.
To
mate,
me,
I totally get that and respect that, mate. How do you, choose between them? But mate, thanks for at least you're the first one to do that, and obviously with all these years of experience in the game, I'll give you a pass mark for that.
And I probably apologise to anyone that I've forgotten because really in those years there was so many, you have players like international players, but then you have a club player that really achieves, that gives you a buzz as a coach, who gets a rep jumper that shouldn't. Gary Coyne was a player like that, I thought. He got a Queensland jumper. He was a really good back rower at Canberra in the early days, but he wasn't Bradley Clyde or Laurie Daly, but he made the Queensland side a really, really clever, back row forward that didn't get the credit. And Dean Lance was another one. There was Glenn Lazarus, pretty fair prop, in his day. I put him into first grade. He was a back rower, first grade prop at 21 years of age, 102 kilo, right? And he got in because, as a lot of players do, Brent Todd broke his arm. You get an injury to us, and a kid gets a go and never looks back. Well, Lazo is a classic. He never looked back, all right. I think he won 5 grand finals with the different clubs and so on, and had a great career. So just that one injury to Brent, and me saying he's a back row, but I think he could, I need him play in front row. So, But he did the work.
Yeah.
He did the work. Yeah.
So it's on the players. Well, yeah, big thanks for Tooheys for that section of the show, the Dream Spine, because teamwork is what Tooheys is all about. So big thanks to Tooheys. We have 3 questions for each and every guest.
Okay. Here we go.
So what would you, mate, this is, I don't even know how you answer this. Usually this answer is given away in the interview, but if football didn't exist, what would you be doing?
I'd be a real estate agent. When I played, I started as a salesman at a Penrith real estate agency. I bought the business at the back end of late 20s. I was still playing football till 32, I think I finished, 32 or 33, because I played a bit in the bush. But I was selling real estate, yeah, and I bought the business. I had the license on the door, and I was an auctioneer as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So stock and station, because we used to sell some in and around Penrith. In those days, there was still plenty of farms and various other things, so we worked on those as well. So really great. Rex Hardy was his name. He's still alive. He's in his late 90s, but he sold me his business, which was a family business. And I tell you what, I don't think it exists anymore, unfortunately, but I know I paid a lot of respect to that family name, because it was under their name, Hardy, and I really appreciated what he did for me.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Sliding doors moment that you think about?
Hell yeah, Jack Gibson. Jack Gibson rang me in 81. I did finish in 82, I think, and then played 83 in the bush. 81, and he said, no managers in those days, you know, and SHeens. I said, yeah? Who's this? Jack Gibson here. Oh. Like, I at that stage I didn't know him really. Only that he was a coach in Sydney. I think he was heading off from Roosters in the mid-70s to Parramatta in the early 80s, right? First year, 81, he rings me, right? And early 81, and he said, would you be interested in playing at Parramatta? And I said, and I'll just digress quickly, in those days there was no M4, right? It was Parramatta Road, right? So it was a fair trip to go to Sydney and play and work, because when you worked, the whole thing about when you worked, you had to stay there, basically. But today, kids, because work is football, you can travel with your family and go anywhere and go back and live there later on in life. So I would have had to have travelled and knock off at 5 or 6 o'clock as a real estate agent and battle to get to Penrith for training, you know. So the only club I could have possibly played for would have been Parramatta, because it was just down the end of wasn't that far down Parramatta Road, you know. Anyway, I said, oh, look, Jack, I'm really honoured, but, you know, I'm captain of the side. I was captain of Penrith. I'm captain, and, you know, I'm at the end of my career, mate. I got my business. I appreciate the offer, really. And he said, okay, mate, and hung up. And they won 3 premierships, didn't they? 81, 82 and 83. Now, I'm not saying I'd have been in those premierships, but he wouldn't have rung me if he wasn't interested. So I'd had 8 first-grade coaches, never made a semi, and I get a ring from him, and I knock him back, right? Okay. So there's this. But I went and played at Campbelltown in Group 6 in 83. 82 I finished, 83. And at the end of 83, Penrith had a seminar about their coaching system. They were about to go out of the comp. They had all sorts of trouble. And I was asked to go to it because I'd been a long-time player, and that's where I was appointed coach.
Yeah.
So
you never.
The sliding door was which one was the sliding door?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because if I'd have played at Parramatta, who knows?
Yeah.
But in real terms, it gave me an option. It gave me an opportunity, and I was heading out of Sydney to go to Queensland to live. I had to buy a house to stay at Penrith, and he made me full time, $25,000 a year full time. That was. We won a few games, and he upped it to 28 or 29, did Roger. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I just wanted to see how you went. Yeah. So, and a good pay, like I think good money. It was 20s. I think the best paid player in the game in those days was, I think, someone like some of the Parramatta boys, but certainly Craig Young, I think, was getting 40 grand as the best prop in the country. There wasn't a lot of money in it part-time in those days. No.
Different world.
Yeah, I'll say.
Hard to, but again, I always think that it's so hard for like the current day player to fathom what it would have been like.
No idea, mate. No idea. I could tell these stories and really?
Yeah,
what?
well, even that, like, you know what I was thinking
you
about?
wear shin pads? Whoa,
yeah.
Whoa.
Well, even think back to the fans of the game, I mean, the players. What I always say this, like, imagine being at a game in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And saying, you know, one day we're going to have this huge TV at the stadium and we're going to be able to see the replays back. You'd be like, what? How? Well, what must if it rains?
True.
Like, you just wouldn't be able to fathom it.
No, you're right there, mate. And I suppose that's the world generally.
Yeah,
the phone,
the
phone and the internet and so on and so on. You know, it used to be the newspaper you'd read, and then it was fish and chip paper, as I said.
Yeah.
Now the internet will pick you up 20 years after. Yeah, what you've done 20 years ago was picked up. You know? So
well, I'd struggle
world.
to still get to the studio without the directions on my phone. I'm hopeless. The final question.
Yeah.
The most interesting person that you've met, not necessarily the most famous, just one that
outside of Jack, actually, who was good to me, Bob Hawke, as Prime Minister when he was a Prime Minister. We were down there. We had some problems with our salary cap. We broke the salary cap the very first year it came in, 91. That's because my 1990 side was being paid more than the salary cap the next year.
Yeah.
Anyway, we broke it by 120,000. Doesn't sound much now, does it? But 1.2 million. And we lost half the club. More than our 52 players, I think 35 of them left the club. A lot of a lot of very good players. And it's a story in itself how we put it back together. But Bob was he hosted us over at after I think the 89 grand final. I think it was then that he was still there, or maybe the 90 grand final. He hosted us at the lodge, you know, and he put some money into our fund. We were raising a fund to raise money because the club didn't have it to pay players for the year after, and he put some money in. And I got to know him, I wouldn't say reasonably well, but he's an interesting character. But sit down and have dinner with the Prime Minister at the time, and him saying, because Canberra turned Canberra Raiders turned Canberra into a town, or more with a bit of a life to it. It's all public servants. People turn over, go in and out of that city for work and things, as in each given year, they move around. But when we won the premiership of 89 and then backed it up in 90, people really turned into rugby league fans down there. A lot of them were AFL people because that's on the border of Canberra's funny. They play a lot of AFL not far away from there. A lot of them are Melbourne people or Adelaide and so on and so on. It's a transition sort of a place is Canberra in the day anyway. But Bob he's out of Sydney, working man character, Labor, and he really got down to earth with the boys and put a few bob in himself. I can't remember what the cheque was, but it was his own, and for fundraising to keep the club afloat. So, that was he came to a number of the games and things like that. So he got invested.
That's cool.
So, but Jack and them over the years, mate, I've met so many people. The game has introduced me to so many people that I couldn't remember some of them, mate. Now, I'll probably remember 10. I'll ring you and say, give me 10 other names. But
well, maybe we'll save that for part 2 because, like I say, we've got way more to go over one day. But mate, this has been
you're opening me up, mate.
I like talking to interesting people, people with experience that have got stories to tell. Like it's fascinating. This chat has been fascinating, and I know our listeners.
Well, I
and
remember
viewers.
you doing your coaching thing at the level 2. You're in that group that I lectured that night too as Australian coach. Yeah, so I like to see players doing coaching studies because I can't believe players don't know the rules. You're playing a sport, and you don't know the rules.
I have
and
been,
there are so many rules in the game.
I've been guilty of that.
Yeah, I know.
And I was filthy on myself for not knowing the rule.
Well, one of the things I always just say, you'd be better to be a coach first and a player second. But unfortunately, Benjamin Button things don't happen, do they? But you are.
You know what, mate? You would be better being a coach first and then a player second.
Exactly. For young players, some of our guys are doing it. Younger players are coaching kids and getting involved.
It's a good.
Yeah. So because you realise what it's like to be on the other side of the clipboard, and having to know the rules and handle the kids and handle the ones that are struggling and all that sort of thing, you get a better feel for and observing the game more. Because the issue is you watch so much footy too. As a player today, in my day, you didn't see every game. Now you've got every game on TV every weekend, right? So you watch the games. I do. Lots of players don't. They don't watch football. They're sick of it. And that's because they are full-time and they train all the time. They're with their mates all the time. They want to get away from their mates.
They should be watching the big games.
They technically do sometimes, but I'll tell you, a heap of guys don't.
It used to annoy me that, like, towards the back end, like, did you see Origin? No.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And there's no excuse other than it often for some players, it's when they give it away, they're going to give it away. They're not going to worry. They're not going to stay in football or around football. In our day, we had to, I suppose, because there wasn't that many jobs in the game, but there's heaps of jobs in and around the peripheral of the game, let alone inside the game itself, in clubs who are hiring lots of footy players to work in systems, right from administrative stuff to PR to media and whatever yourself. But but yeah, so many players that I'm an addict on as far as footy games are concerned. I have to watch every round, and I have to analyse almost every round, and I'll pick up something. I like that. Well, if you change that a bit, was that done deliberately or was that an accident? And often you can build things around things that you see that are just accidentally done.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think as a player, that you're perfecting your craft. Yeah. You should be across what other opposition players are going to be doing, little things that you can bring to your game that might make a difference to you and your team.
Yeah. Well, I found out very quickly when I coached Australia that Billy Slater was always going to be a coach. He was coaching the boys up front. He was telling, not taking anything from Coops, and the 5'8" at Melbourne, you wouldn't remember half the 5'8s because it was Cooper dominating the game. He was a 76, I call him. John and Thurston the same. They played without a 5'8", basically, like they were on the ball all the day and followed the ball, a bit like the rugby system.
Yeah. And
coaching Jonathan and Cooper in the same team after Darren gave it away. Coops got the gig at Queensland and Australia, and both were dominant players. It was interesting to try and keep them out of each other's space, But the situation of watching players play that are in your position, if you're a player, you're watching what the better players are doing, surely.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. Mate, it's a given.
Yeah,
it really
and trying to compete against them or with them or be better than them, But they're sick of it because they work all day with them. Like you do 3-4 days a week, depending on how long the week is, how short the week is with games. Then you're at the game and you're travelling and you're living with them in the hotels, which didn't happen that much a long time ago. You're bussing or driving to all the games. My time was all of Sydney. You drove yourself, found your own car space, and went to the game that way. And hoped your car didn't get scratched because you didn't leave anything on it that showed you who the car was. It wasn't a Penrith car, because
how crazy.
That's happened a few times. And but these days they spend so much time together that they actually appreciate the time with their families.
Look, I get that. I get that, but I still think more players should be watching. But anyway, Sheensy, it's been an absolute. Sheensy, your coach, Tim SHeens.
Not shithead.
It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. And I'm looking forward to seeing, going back to the very beginning of this conversation, this very rare situation bear the fruits in years to come. And like you say, you're pushing for that top 8. Real difficult task on your hands, especially with a couple of key players being out. But know that with a guy at the helm like you'll go a long way to doing it.
Yeah, to a degree. You can, and I'm not going to give myself an excuse, but it is difficult when you lose key players. There's no doubt. Your spine in particular is called that for that very reason. You know, they do all the communication, all the things, your reactions, everything evolves around the guys that touch the ball the most in the game, and it's those 4 people. So, but you know, we're a tight club. You can win by simplifying things and just with pure effort, and that's where we're going to have to go for a while. Yeah, and hopefully stay in touch to be able to, at least in 6 weeks' time, say we're still some sort of a chance.
Yeah, have a crack at it.
Yeah, no worries.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Jimmy. Cheers.